Bobo is asking, why do you think radical outfits have amped up their attacks against Israel? How will this impact the already fragile coalition in the Israel government? Okay, so I don't know how to answer this without sounding like I'm victim blaming. You know, it's gonna sound like I'm victim blaming. How do I do this? All right. So before, maybe to not sound like I'm victim blaming, I have to first mention, right, that obviously the criminals in Israel who are responsible for the attacks on the Israeli citizens, right, they are, what they're doing is horrible. Okay, and I condemn that. Okay, and nothing, anybody is, there's nothing worse than acts of violence against innocent civilians. I mean, well, there's, I don't want to say nothing, but there's few things worse than, right? So I condemn that. That's horrible. I don't want to blame the individual civilians that have had this happen to them. Um, they are the victims, okay, and they have no responsibility for anything that has happened to them, right? So I hope nobody thinks that I'm victim blaming when I say this, okay? But the conditions, and again, I have to be careful. The main people responsible for radicals being radicals are the radicals themselves, okay? The main people, the number one people we need to blame for people becoming radicals are the people who are actually the radicals, okay? So with that being aside, I also have to say that the conditions that Arabs are facing, both in the West Bank and the Arabs in Israel, and most importantly, the Arabs in Gaza Strip beyond everywhere else, is perfect condition for radicalization. Okay, the economic hardship and the devastating conditions that they live under, if anybody would predict whether these environments would create radicals, I mean, if anybody was, trying to, it would be easy to see why the environments like this would produce radicals, right? So what I'm trying to say is, without sounding like I'm victim blaming, is that Israeli policies in not addressing the the plight of the Palestinians and the hardship that they're going through, and the devastating poverty and lack of opportunities and access to hope for a better future, is, to some degree, should be seen as responsible for the continued radicalization and attack on their own civilians. I want to see if can anybody think like this line of thinking. Is that, do you think, like, if I'm saying that, am I victim blaming? Because I do think that the Israeli government is doing, if you don't if you're not if you don't care enough for other human beings for the sake of caring for other human beings, and you're just a government that just wants to keep its own citizens safe, even by that metric, you're not the Israeli government is doing a horrible job. And I wouldn't blame anybody for thinking that's by design, because of more threats on your civilians will be good for the sections of your government that is also more radical, right leaning, or for any part of your government that would benefit from higher funding and in security, and militarization of your government, right? I mean, this is not a conspiracy. Having more threats benefits certain parts of Israel's government, either far right, religious, or the part of the government that are responsible for defense, right? So there is interest in not solving these problems. Let me know if you think I'm being conspiratorial. Ibn Qiyam is saying he thinks I'm being very balanced. Okay, thank you very much. But yeah, if you think I'm being conspiratorial, or if I am blaming the victim, please criticize me. I try to take a look at your criticism and adjust. But there's a second part of this question by Bobo saying, how will this impact the already fragile coalition in the Israeli government? I don't know how this will impact it, because I think the main thing that is making the coalition fragile. I mean, so what brings the coalition together is keeping Netanyahu out, right? But the coalition has a lot of ideological disagreement with each other, right? But are these ideological disagreements strong enough to become stronger than their hatred for Netanyahu? Again, I always have to mention that Netanyahu has hijacked the Likud party, because the Likud party would be in power right now if Netanyahu was not in charge, easily. Because without Netanyahu, the coalition wouldn't have the fear of Netanyahu to be able to unite like this, right? So I know right now the coalition is even more fragile than before, because of some people leaving either leaving the coalition or threatening to leave. But I don't know why the reasoning behind that was, right? I don't know, so I have to take a look, right? But I think, Iran might be a bigger issue. Iran's Vienna talks might be a bigger issue right now, but I don't know. Okay, because actually, one thing. Actually, now that I think about it, one thing that a lot of Israelis think is that Netanyahu is tougher on the Arab population within Israel and Palestinians as well, right? And the current coalition is a coalition that includes Arabs in the coalition. So I'm wondering whether a more anti-Arab attitude growing inside of Israel because of these attacks would make more people want Netanyahu back, and that would make the coalition weaker or not. I don't know. I'm just being very clear. I don't know if that's true. I'm just wondering out loud with you if that is what the impact is going to be. Let me know if you think that's what the impact is going to be, right?
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.